A troubled young man. Some have said that he was a ticking time bomb. Joining us now is former New York City detective John Beza. And Detective, first of all, I want to talk to you about this young man, but the crime scene itself. And we heard from the police lieutenant at the top of the hour here talking about the crime scene still being very active. We know that the victims are still inside the school, as far as we know. First of all, why must they be left in there for so long and not return to their loved ones? And what's going on now as far as the collection of evidence?
Well, right now they have to, they're going to have to identify some of the victims. They're still going to have to be taking photographs. They'll be collecting evidence, but with as far as the bodies of the children, they're going to need to identify them first before they take them out to the medical examiner's office.
And we have
shortly.
We have actually heard within the last hour or so that all the victims have, in fact, been identified, and that's new information that's just come over recently, Detective. But as we take a look at the work that still lies ahead for the investigators, what do they have to do?
Well, I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to look for a motive. I mean, that's what we look for. And there is always a motive. There is always a motive. But if they find one, it may be very, very difficult for anybody to even grasp or to understand. What needs to happen now, and what I really oppose the notion of, is that people want to mourn, and I agree with that. I have 5 children myself, but I also want to be able to take action so that this won't happen. Three of my children are going to be going to elementary school on Monday. So we need to take some action. And as a police officer, I can tell you that what needs to be done is these gun-free school zones, that needs to be repealed. We have to have protection there. We have to have the ability for teachers and people on campuses to be able to defend themselves and to protect these young children.
So what you're talking about is to have someone who is armed and trained inside every school around the country in the event of something like this happening?
If I'm not talking about necessarily hiring or having a police state, but I'm talking about allowing teachers and other personnel that work at the school to have the ability to have a weapon. If that principal, and it's a very tragic incident, but if that principal had a weapon, there may have been the chance to save more children, to save her own life. But we need to take this notion of, not taking action now. We really need to take action now. We need to look at this, take action, and do it. Because if you look at the mass murders that we've had, and most of them, and the ones that are on TV all the time, they happen in gun-free zones. And this is something we have to learn, and we have to protect our children. And I want to protect my 3 children that are going to elementary school. So that's very important it should be very important to everybody.
Detective, what would you have teachers and educators arm themselves with? And should they have the kind of ammunition that this young man had that allowed him to kill so many people in 3 minutes?
Sure they should. Sure they should. They should have any ammunition they could want. I mean, the thing here is, the bottom line is, when you talk about ammunition or weapons, the bottom line is they need something, and it could be anything. Any type of firearm to save the children. If you were to give me a magic wand and I could change things, I would give that principal, or I would have that principal or some of the teachers armed. It could have saved more of the students and staff that were killed, and it's very important.
John Beza is a former New York City police detective joining us today with his take on this. Very different from what a lot of people around the country, sir, are thinking. They might listen to your remedy and scratch their heads a little bit, but you certainly come at this from a career in law enforcement, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Rick.